Hi universe, you see me again in 100 Days Live with Sonya. Of course, this is the place for the experts to share their experiences and strategies in life and business to reach their goals and their dreams, right? And yes, every day I always try to give you the best speakers, the best experts in their field so that today I have a very amazing lady. Actually, I admire her a lot about her career, about her movement, So I don't know how to explain about her because she has been in the consulting business also for years, also with the 500 fortune, something like that. Wow, I don't know how many years I can reach that actually from this step, and that's why I need to learn a lot also from her, and I want you to give your best comments or your best questions also for her if you are here, right? Then this is not an interview actually today. This is like an interrogation about her because I'm very curious about fan organization, what she works on today also because she has just told me also that she has a new podcast. Oh, very, very exciting. So welcome, Christine McKay. Thank you very much for coming into 100 Days Live with Sonya. I'm very excited. I've been waiting this for so long, because I see your biography. It is a very long, but then I'm not bored reading it. Usually, I'm a sleepyhead, so I can fall asleep if I read too long. That's why the audio book helped me so much today, because I cannot read like the thick book or something like that. So welcome, welcome. Thank you very much for being here today. And yes, what makes you come into 100 Days Live with Sonia? I'm really excited about today.
Well, Sonia, thank you so much for having me. It is an honor to be here. And I just have been really admiring all the work that you've been doing. And just when
Wow,
you
thank you.
posted about this event, it wasn't even going to be 100 days.
Mhm.
You were starting at 50, and then you just had this overwhelming response and just really dove in and have just made this such a great event, and the sponsors and everything. Just congratulations to you for all the
Thank
incredible
you
work
so
that you're
much.
doing, and
Thank you so much.
you're changing lives, Sonia, and it's an awesome thing. So thank you. It's an honor to be here. Yes, my bio was very long. I should have sent you my shorter one.
No, but
Clearly,
but this is
clearly I didn't.
exciting because all of you have been writing. It's not boring at all, because all of your achievements are there, and I'm very excited. I admire you, and I didn't know that you say those lovely words that you love my work also. So it's really amazing.
Yeah, it's, I mean, and we were chatting just before the show, and your home country is absolutely one of my favorite places on the planet. And I haven't been back in a number of years, but I've never been to Bali, so that's not how I define
Thank you.
Indonesia. So Indonesia is not Bali to me. Indonesia, I spend a lot of time in Java, and it's
Mhm.
just such a beautiful place, and just you guys are just so beautiful and warm, and I just really appreciate you. You guys taught me a lot about life and lessons. I learned a lot of lessons when I was working in Indonesia, so thank you for that. But
Yeah,
um,
it is amazing, right, that we met online like this now when you came here before. So you still have one assignment to visit Bali next time when I am there.
okay, I do want to go. I do want to go. So, but yeah, so I'm a business negotiation strategist, and I
Mm-hmm.
started doing negotiation initially professionally in Indonesia in the early
Wow.
1990s. In fact, Soeharto
Mm-hmm.
was still in power when I was working in Indonesia.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a very, as a young woman of, I was what, 29, 30, and had three little kids at home. And
Mm-hmm.
I was traveling to Jakarta, and was
Mm-hmm.
there for about 9 months. And it was where I started my negotiation career, was in Indonesia, and then Malaysia and Singapore. And so
Mm-hmm.
it was a wonderful place to learn negotiation and bring it back to the United States. And I've negotiated with almost half of the Fortune 500. I've negotiated in
Mm-hmm.
53 countries, and
Wow.
the U.S. is only one country, so it's been a real blessing and an honor to have the experience of negotiating with in so many different cultures and geographies. And I love learning how people are the same everywhere, and the
Mm-hmm.
things where the areas where we're different, but we're more the same
Mm-hmm.
than different. And it's just a great thing. So I'm really
Yeah.
glad to be here.
Wow, me too. It is amazing that it is a bit complicated even for us, the locals, people about the negotiation, right? Sometimes the bribery, the money on the envelope under the table works much more than the negotiation skill itself, right? That's also.
Well, that's
How
that's
did
that's
you?
oh, go ahead.
Yeah. So how did you find it that way that negotiation is certain special skill in Southeast Asia, for example, at that time?
It's actually interesting because bribery is common throughout the world. I mean, it's not
Yes.
specific just to Asia, but all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
And the
Mm-hmm.
United States has a very rigid policy against bribery in business that's
Mm-hmm.
governed by what we call the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was never aware of any bribery that happened. I had legal agreements that I signed that said that I wouldn't do it. Who knows what happened further? I mean, we were doing business with Soharto's son at this at time, and so I'm sure that somewhere down the chain that was happening, but I certainly had
Mm-hmm.
no window into it. And I think as a woman working as a young woman working in Asia
Mm-hmm.
in the mid 1990s, I mean, it's a different world than it is in the United States then,
Yeah,
and
I
and it's
believe
still
so. I
it's
believe
still
so.
different, right? And so there were a lot of nuances of working in Southeast Asia in general
Mm-hmm.
that as a woman I had to figure out how to delicately balance
Mm-hmm.
between getting things done and doing things that in a way that was consistent with my company at the time, their values and principles, et cetera, but still allowed us to move forward in the business. And that in and of itself was a negotiation, which was very informative over time. But it was definitely interesting because the difference between power between men and women is
Mm-hmm.
significant and great everywhere in the world. It's there's a huge power
Until
imbalance.
today, until today,
Yeah,
I
and
still, I
it,
still experience it until today. Yes, I
and I
agree.
do too in the United States. Absolutely, it's still here in
Oh.
the United States as well. It is an issue throughout the world, and in some areas
Mm-hmm.
it's much more challenging than in others, but and
Mm-hmm.
certainly in the US it's not as challenging as it is for you where you're at and in other countries. But that
Mm-hmm.
figuring out how being a woman and being driven, and I know you are driven, and you are driven to be successful, and you're driven to change lives, and I see
Thank you
that in your
so much.
posts, and I see that in all the work that you're doing. And I think that you know for us to find that balance of getting what we want, but having to and needing to have to do it in a way that's not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily doesn't feel right sometimes to us, can be very frustrating at times, which is why I think we see a lot of women banding together, because it's kind of like, well, if the boys are going to take their balls and go home, their toys and go
Mm-hmm.
home, then we're going to figure out how to create our own game. And so I see a lot of that happening. So
Yes, and then today we are talking about ask for more and what you want and get it right. So is it also about negotiation skill, or how do you perceive that title in our discussion today?
So I mean, negotiation is in everything we do, right? The first and part of the thing, one of the things that people make a mistake doing in negotiation, or rather not doing, is that they're not clear enough on what it is that they want. And so when we want something from somebody, the emotion is immediately engaged. And sometimes that emotion can kind of take over, and we don't think about the details, like the really little details of things that are possible. So when I'm talking about negotiation, I was like, there's three main components to being an effective negotiator. And one is you have to be very clear on what it is that you want, and what's important about those things to you, because those things become the things that you trade off to your counterpart, which is another part. You not only have to be clear about what you want, but you have to get clear on what your counterpart wants and needs to be successful. I always say that negotiation is a hopeful act. When we're negotiating with somebody, it's because we believe that doing something together is better than not doing something together, right? That there's a better future waiting for us if we either do this deal, or if we, separate and don't do this deal. But we, if we have a relationship and we're going to break up, but we believe that there's a hope in the act of negotiating. But we have to be clear on what it is that we want, what's important, how important things are to us. And we have to think about our counterparts. And so often people don't think about their counterpart when they're negotiating. They only think about what it is that they want. The next thing we have to do is we have to make sure we understand how to communicate effectively, how to ask. How are we going to ask somebody for something? And this is an area that's in part driven by culture, but in part driven by kind of personalities. How do people like to be communicated with? Because negotiation is a series of yeses. So you get a yes, and then it makes it easier to get another yes, and then easier to get another yes, and easier to get another yes. And so the easiest, when we're first meeting with people, the easiest thing to do is to figure out how they communicate. Do they want to have long meetings? Do they like long emails? Do they like to have a lot of people together, even pre-COVID, or do you have lots of meetings on Zoom, with a lot of people involved? Are you somebody who's slower to make decisions because you're more risk adverse, or you want to have a deep relationship? So that kind of person, right? And that kind of person needs to be communicated with in a different way. They want to have a 30-minute or an hour-long meeting. They want an email that's written in paragraph form, versus somebody who, lives on their phone and just wants something in 3 bullet points on a text, and doesn't want to have and it's like, if you want a meeting, set up 15 minutes with me. We don't need an hour. What's an hour for? And the reason why that matters is because it's when you're first meeting somebody, it's your first opportunity to get your first yes. So I'm a text person. I like 15-minute meetings and short communications. But if I'm talking to somebody who I think likes longer communication and to go deeper, I'm going to make that adjustment so that I can get a yes, so that I can go, okay, now I've created an opportunity to build on something. So how we ask for something matters. And then the third part is making sure that you engage in a negotiation process. Negotiation isn't about the content entirely. It's more about the process of negotiation, and making sure that you understand when decisions are being made, who gets to make them, understanding who's responsible for what, and all of those things, and figuring out what that process looks like. That really helps you to establish leverage and gives you credibility in the negotiation.
Yeah, the first time at that time I learned about the professional negotiation, even though I have been doing it before, and was from the videos from the British Council, because there are so many on the library how to make or to have the deal. And of course it is totally different in Asia, as you've been experienced that
Hmm.
also, and then with the Western cultures, right? So what factors that we can make, because I'm a fast decision maker also. I cannot wait, just if my feeling is not right or my gut is not right, then I just cut it off. Well, but also sometimes because of it I challenge myself, and it makes the bad decision after that, because I challenge myself to keep going even though I feel not already
Hmm.
comfortable in the beginning. So what factors that we can recognize in the beginning when we do the negotiation with the people, and how can we know that the people are the right people who deal with us, something like that.
Well, I think there is definitely truth to be said in terms of
Mm-mm,
trusting your instincts on
mm-mm,
whether or not somebody is trustworthy or worth doing business with.
mm-mm,
But the way that you can test things to make sure that it's the right relationship, the right partnership, the right customer, the right supplier, the right investor, is to get very curious, to be very curious about your counterpart. Ask a
mm-mm,
lot of very open ended questions.
mm-mm,
Ask questions that are, what would you do in this situation? How might that play? How might that work? What does that mean? And then make sure that you're clarifying to make sure you understand what it is that they're saying. So asking questions is the best way to get clarity and refine what it is that this person is going to be. And if somebody is, very difficult and, not doesn't treat you right in the negotiation, they're not going to treat
mm-mm.
you right after the negotiation. Matter of fact, it'll be worse. So
Oh
it,
yes, okay.
so I, no is one of the best words ever because it's a full sentence, and and it's a power word, right? It's the word that we can use to leverage, just to get power, because we ultimately have the choice to walk away from the negotiation, to walk away from
Mm-hmm.
the deal, and making certain that you say no when you mean it is really valuable. And listen for, when you're asking questions, listen with I call listening kind of a full body activity, right? It's happens as much with our eyes as it does with our ears.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're asking questions, just be sure to listen with intent so that you are understanding what it is that your counterpart is saying they can and cannot do.
Yes, and then let me put this way: when we have that bad feeling in the beginning, should we continue the meeting to see if that someone deserve our attention or not?
So it depends on the situation, but
Mm-hmm.
generally, my view is that unless I've asked a series of very big questions that lead
Mm-hmm.
to a dialogue, because our philosophy at my company on negotiation is that negotiation is a conversation about a relationship, and you cannot win a relationship, but you can get more value out
Yes.
of it. So sometimes we have a gut reaction that's based on our own garbage that we've dealt with in the past that has nothing to do with the
Mm-hmm.
person sitting in front of us. In fact, the person sitting in front of us may say something and we react to it, not because it was how that person intended it, but it was how we heard it because of something in our past. And so it's really important to not make a decision to leave the table just because of that feeling, because it could be something that you've experienced and you're putting that feeling into the situation. So ask more questions about to
Mm-hmm.
clarify and to test whether or not that feeling is something that is you and you're stuck, or is it actually something that's real and you can verify it in the behavior or in additional answers to questions.
It sounds like win-win deal doesn't exist that way. Because because you mentioned about the counterparts, and then we need to ask a lot of questions and see if we can get the best deal, right?
Mm. Yeah, the win-win is a concept that was developed out of Harvard University, and
Mm-hmm.
it definitely has value, but it wasn't developed in the way that most people think of it. So
Mm.
usually, I have a raw egg in a shell on my computer or at my
And
desk.
you are from Harvard, right?
I
You
did go.
graduated from
I did go to
Harvard for
Harvard.
your
I
master
did.
program.
Yes, I did. I did. I was very honored to have that opportunity. But if you think about an egg, right, in a shell that's raw, I always ask people, how would you've got three people who want this one.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Christine, I lost you. Yeah, so we talk about negotiation skill today, which is very important in our daily life and business, of course. And Christine McKay is the expert to share that best knowledge and experiences in negotiating because he has a lot of experiences for many years with the big companies, and I really admire her for sharing that with us today. And I lost her connection for a while, but this is an amazing session that we have from her today. And I hope that you learn also the things from her about negotiating skill, in which also like me in the developing country like this and in Southeast Asia, it's totally different for the culture here to negotiate. Sometimes we cannot say whatever we want first in the very beginning. We have to see what other people offer first so that we can negotiate in the middle of it. So I call it in the middle because, yeah, such theory like win-win deal actually doesn't exist in my opinion, because however you take it or not, that is what I mean with the middle negotiation. So we are waiting for her again. I hope that she still can join us, and this is a very great chance for us to have the masterclass every day from the experts, and I hope that you can reach them more uh, easily through our coaching universe or through 100 Days Live with Sonya. If you need someone as your coach or your mentor or your trainers, and then you can contact them directly, or also you can ask me whether they are the right person to be your coach or your trainer or your mentor, of course. That's why I make 100 days live with Sonya with the vision that the people who need their mentors, their coach, or their trainers meet each other in the best way, without spending thousands of dollars. Yeah, there are some experts who can cost or charge that way, but you will get the best benefits, the best outcomes that you expect to. So it is not like you spend a lot of money without any results that maybe you experience out there. That's why I'm very happy that this is happening like this. That I have the great speakers. They are very talented. They are very experienced in their own fields, right? And they are very open to help us in every way that we need, and you can contact them directly. And I'm going to put the link in the comments later how you can contact Christine Mackay, because I believe that if your business has been growing well and then you need to make it better, of course the negotiation skill is really needed, right? I'm going to answer. So this is also a great way for us to meet like this, as you know that we didn't meet when she was in Jakarta years ago, right? But then we meet this way into the online world, and I'm very happy to have her here. There she is. I've been waiting for her camera again. Christine, are you there? Can you hear me? Oh, there you
I can
are.
hear you.
I almost do this alone.
Gosh, that was so weird. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. My machine just quit and restarted.
Mhm. Yes, yes, me too. I lost my camera now.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, the bandwidth here, you see, uh, like internet is still like a luxurious thing in our life here.
Right, right.
So where were we? I asked you about how to mention what we want to first, or listen to the other counterpart first. You know, the other side first, what they want, what they need, something like that. Because here in our culture, sometimes if we ask too much in the very beginning, then there is no deal because they think we are difficult to deal with, right? So,
Mm,
what is the best way? Should we mention also in general? I mean, not only in the ASEAN culture, but also in the international negotiating world, right? Because you know now I deal with the companies also abroad, and then I'm very happy, you know, that a big company, huge company like Restream will be our official sponsor in online World Summit for live streamer with Sonya in June. That's why this is like a pathway to go to Bali next year if the condition is better. And
oh, that's
I hope that
awesome.
you can join us in June also next year, of course,
Oh,
in
that would be
Bali.
awesome. I would love that. I would love that. Well, it's true.
Thank you.
Different. I mean, it is
Mm,
true. You can't ask. I mean, negotiation is about a give and take, right? It's a
mm-hmm,
going back and forth. It's a conversation. So when
mm-hmm,
if all somebody does is ask a lot of questions, but doesn't offer anything and contribute
mm-hmm,
anything to the conversation, now it's not a conversation. It's an interrogation, and that does not feel
mm-hmm,
good. That is not fun. So yes, if you have somebody who just sits and interrogates you with questions, then that's not effective, because really effective negotiation is about that conversation. It is the going back and forth, and there's a level of transparency to that conversation where you know, I'm on this mission. People think of negotiation as a game, and it's like, it's not a game, it's a
yes.
conversation. And
Mm-hmm.
I've been married to my husband for 28 years. We've been together for 30
Wow.
years. And I always say that, you know, I love him more today than I did yesterday, and I will love him more tomorrow than I do today. But the deal that we
It's
entered
great to
into,
believe that way.
he's amazing. He's just a wonderful person. But the person that
Oh,
the person that I married is very different from the
mm,
person that he is today. And so
mm,
the deal that we entered into has changed over time because we're not the same people. We've grown and matured and changed. But in
mm,
business, we seem to think that, you know, in certain, especially in some cultures, especially in more westernized cultures, we
mm,
think that it's just this, it's a chess game or it's poker. Some, people throw out all
mm,
sorts of different games to it. It's like, but no, it's not. It is about a conversation around how do we make each other more successful. How does this relationship move us both closer to where we're trying to go? And when you have, and especially in partnership conversations, right, that partnership conversation is all about future benefit, right? It's all about both parties being much better off in the future than you are today working separately. And so making sure that partnering
mm.
agreements take that into account is really important, including being able to renegotiate contracts when a contract isn't working anymore, which is another very important
Mm.
part of the negotiation process.
So everything should be written, right? There is no like or a negotiation or something like that. We need to write on everything and make it legal or something like that.
So there are different types. So there's two different types of contracts. There's formal
Mm-hmm.
contracts, which usually attorneys write, and there are
Yes.
informal contracts. Informal contracts can be on a handshake and just your word, But the problem is that very few of us have good enough memories to remember what was actually said. It could be
Yes.
written on a napkin or thrown in an email. But I personally, my philosophy is that what we've agreed to should be written down someplace, in part because I know my memory is just not, we forget most of what we hear within 24 hours of hearing it. And so we have too many things going on in our heads. And so if we get into business and we start working in 3 years from now, something isn't working, and one party goes, well, we agreed to doing this. Well, that's not how I remember it. Well, that's the way the human brain works. So my counsel to everybody is to write your agreements down. I did an episode on my podcast with a gentleman who has built a $16 million business doing no contracts, no formal contracts. All of his contracts are informal and on a handshake. But it's caused some pain for him and for others, and it's not a policy that I personally recommend. I don't think all contracts need to be written by
Very
lawyers.
risky what she
It is
does.
risky. Yeah, it is risky. And I don't believe lawyers should have to write every contract. I don't believe that either. I think lawyers have a place. But I think that, most of the language in formal contracts is business related anyway. And so I think business people could be more effective by taking more ownership of their contracts, whether they're formal or informal. But I am a proponent of writing things down.
Yes, and then in negotiating a skill, how can we start it, especially for the startup? I know that you have been dealing with big corporates, big businesses, but I hope that you can give some advices also for the startup business.
Well, that's the population
The
of people I work with.
yes.
That's who I work with now. I don't work for large companies. I negotiate with them on behalf of smaller businesses. So my company, Venn Negotiation, we work with small and mid-sized companies, helping them negotiate more effectively. And so we have we have programs that we do too, just different than yours, but we have training programs, as well as we provide consulting services, and we go and help companies negotiate. But the process is the same, whether you are a startup and just launching your business, or if you're a Fortune 500 company. The difference comes in the people who are doing it and the access to information. So larger companies have obviously a lot more people and a lot more access to information, and people are specialists. Smaller businesses don't have those things. So some of the simple tips that I tell people who are starting out, one of the first things is absolutely nail down what that negotiation process is. When you're negotiating with another entity, decide, are we doing a formal contract? Is it being written by an attorney? Who has to approve it? For small businesses, always have an advisor or an advisory board, that when you're doing negotiations that are important to you in your business, that you have to go and talk to somebody about, because the company across from you probably isn't the CEO. You're probably not talking, you might be, but you might not be talking to the CEO. And if you're the CEO, you don't want to be the one, you want to have somebody else that you can go and talk to, because that is important. It elevates you in terms of, it gives you credibility, and it gives you time to step away and evaluate more effectively. Is this decision the right thing? Don't answer your phone. If you're negotiating, if you are in a negotiation, do not answer your phone. Let it go to voicemail and call that person back when you are ready to have that conversation. Don't let the other side, don't let your counterpart dictate or drive the conversation. Make sure you're in a position, you're in the right frame of mind, you're in the right state of mind, and you have the right mindset for that conversation. And so call them back. It's not a big deal to call them back. and then take notes. I always take notes in my meetings. I write the notes up and I send them to my counterparts and say, this is what we agreed. This is what we
Mhm.
discussed. This is what we agreed. These are the issues that are still open, and these are the next steps. Let me know if you have any changes to the meeting minutes. And that gives them the opportunity to provide insight or correction. And then if they're fine with them, then those things become kind of your markers for how you move forward, because now you've agreed to these different issues. We don't have to talk about
Mhm.
those anymore, right? And then make sure you get agreement on timing. Who's involved in the approval process? How long is that going to take? What happens if somebody is out of the office, they're sick or they're on vacation? Then what happens? And then make sure you have a process for setting up how you're going to review the relationship on
Mhm.
at least 2 year other year, but once a year if it's a really big and important contract. But at least once every couple of years, you want to sit and say, is this deal still working for us? And so if you set
Oh,
that
okay, okay.
process in place, then that
Mhm.
makes the relationship easier, because it's a negotiation, is a conversation about a relationship. When you have that process and that structure in place, it makes it so much easier to manage that negotiation effort.
Yeah, I was about to ask you, is it the same with the online business or offline business in negotiating our needs, right? And also, how if we cannot meet the agreement that we have already deal with, and then also like not only us, maybe our associate cannot meet the agreement also after it is going or running. What can we do for that?
So if you have a situation where you're in a relationship and it's not working, there are usually a handful of reasons why that's the case.
Mm.
One has to do with the quality of the relationship. Maybe the relationship isn't very good anymore, and there's a difficulty there. Sometimes it has to do with financial risk. You're not pulling cash flow in, you're not selling enough, and there's
Mm.
profitability at risk. Sometimes there's an operational aspect, and sometimes there's a strategic impact that can cause that relationship to start to break up and kind of fracture. Again, it's the exact same process. Be clear on what it is that you want, and ask effective questions of your counterpart, and be transparent to let your counterpart know that, hey, that deal that we signed is just not working for me. I can't,
Mm.
on my podcast, I had a guy who overextended himself and got into a lot of debt with his supplier, and had to finance $500,000 of materials. And he did the financing and then realized, oh darn, I can't pay it back the way that I promised. And so he had to refinance it again within a few short months, but he had been paying it every week and letting the supplier know the status of the business every single week. And so when he had to go back and tell them that I can't repay this the way I thought I could, they were open to having that conversation. So no matter what risk is kind of driving the need to have a new
Mhm.
conversation, it's really about finding the courage in ourselves to initiate that conversation, because the hardest part of any negotiation happens right in between our ears, and it goes on in our
Mhm.
own heads, and we make up all these stories, most of which aren't even true. And whereas if we just have the conversation, we go, oh, well, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. But we make it out to be this really horrible thing in our head. And so that's the biggest thing, is just be clear on what it is you want and initiate that conversation.
Yes, so you suggest that we open the communication first before cutting the deal, if we cannot do that after
Yes.
it is running, right? And about your
Yes.
book, is it also about negotiating skill? or
It's
how to
coming. It's
negotiate?
I do. I do. I have a book coming soon. It's with my editor.
Mm,
It's called Why Not Ask: A Conversation About Getting More, and it's
mm.
available on my website for pre-order. And yeah, it's coming soon. It's almost there. I am very excited about it. So.
Yeah, as for more what you want and get it, and I'm going to ask you also that you join our next event for online word summit for the live streamers with Sonya, of course. Is it? And I hope that you
I would
can be
love
our
to.
sponsor also.
I would love to, Sonia. Whatever I can do to support you. You are doing some amazing work, and it's just really exciting to see
Thank you
you.
so much. Thank you
You've
so
come
much.
so far in a short amount of time that I've known you. You've just come so far, and it's just really awesome to see.
Yeah, even Ross Brand, one of our mentors in live streaming, he said that it was crazy idea. To have 100 days. Yeah, I should do 1 week and then or 2 weeks or 1 month, the longest, like the other people do. But you see, there are some speakers and other people also who ask for the next year. I said, oh, please, no, thank you. Or if I can do that, maybe I need the co-host, not me alone every day. Because before this, now it is like something that I planted in my brain, like the new good habit to live stream every day. Like this is my
Hmm.
commitment, right, Christine? But before that, I have to work real hard, like the horse,
Oh,
every
I get
day
it.
to make this happen so that I can have time every morning. Because in here, morning is the working time to make money, right?
Right. I understand completely. I feel that way about my podcast that just launched. And
Mm.
so it was an all
Please share the link with us.
consuming,
Don't forget that.
what's that?
Please share the link with us in the comments. Don't
Oh,
forget it after
I
this,
will. I
okay?
will. Yeah, I
And
will.
also the book, because I don't know if you are already in our Coaching Universe Facebook group, but most of the speakers are there already to share their programs, and maybe I'm going to have the VIP membership also, so that we can make the master class there for all of the members.
Oh, awesome.
You know,
That's a great idea. I love it. I love it.
because
I
we
will put
we
the
need
links
your
in the book.
skill.
I'll put the links and I'll put the links to the book and to the podcast in the comments.
I will really need you, because yeah, even you said that in a relationship, in a marriage, actually this is also about negotiating, right?
Yeah, it is. I mean, the thing is that when I talk to people,
Mm-mm,
the majority of people, all reality is all of us are afraid to
mm-hmm,
ask for what we want at different points in time. Some of us
mm-hmm,
are afraid to do it most of the time, and some are
mm-hmm,
only afraid to do it once in a while. But all of us are afraid to ask at some point. The thing is that what ends up happening is we're afraid of being judged in that asking process. The other thing that happens is that most of us go into negotiation thinking that the person across the table from us is not isn't working in our interest at all and doesn't care about us, and we don't trust them.
mm-hmm,
So we don't trust them. So we have this lack of trust, and we have this issue where we're afraid of being judged. And so the two things combined mean that we're negotiating from a position of scarcity and fear,
mm-hmm.
and we don't need to do it that way. We can do it in a totally different way and achieve just so many more amazing things together by being effective as negotiators, whether it's with our families, with our
Mm.
bosses, if somebody has a job, or whether it's with our employees or our customers, suppliers, or investors. And I really, in the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of negotiations I've done, I've seen over and over and over how there is more to be had, how there is more available for all of us if we just ask and negotiate for it.
Wow, thank you so much. I feel really proud that you are here today. And what is your message for our viewers today, and also the people who are going to watch later?
And the biggest message is really what I just said. I mean, just ask for more. Write down what it is that you want in, when you're working with a counterpart. Be clear about that and ask for more. I mean, you don't have it right now, so the worst thing that they're going to say is no, and that just means that you have the same thing that you have today tomorrow. That's okay. Right? It's okay, because somebody else, then it's just a matter of finding the other right person who can give you what it is that you want. And so just ask for what you want. One of my favorite Maya Angelou quotes is, ask for what you want and expect to get it.
Yes, actually, there are more questions that I would like to ask you, but maybe there will be Christian McKay 1, 2, 3 with Sonia. Especially, I need to know. I'm very curious how you handle the no in negotiation. Negotiation, that's why. Maybe
Uh,
it will be for the next discussion in online World Summit. But it will be not the interview. This is like the presentation or the speaking from the speakers
that
for
sounds
20
good.
or 25 minutes. That's why. So there will be a lot that you need to share with us later.
All right, that sounds good. I love it. Thank you, Sonia.
Chris, thank you so much for being here once more. And if you love this program, please do not forget to register to our coaching universe.anitasonya.com, our coaching universe.anitasonya.com. And thank you to Rose Brand as our main sponsor in 100 Days Live with Sonya, because without you and other sponsors, and also, of course, the great speakers like Christine McKay, this event won't happen successfully like this. And I thank you so much. And I see you later. There will be George who is going to talk about the media, about the journalism. And I'll see you too. Bye bye. Thank you,
Bye.
Liz.
Thank you, Sonia.